This is Access Ann Arbor.
Hi, I'm Amy McDonald Anderson, and I'll be hosting the CTN production, Speaking of Dance, the Art of the Solo. We're going to be looking at the solo as a dance form in the tradition of concert dance, also known as art dance. My background is in dance and choreography with a degree from the University of Michigan in dance. And I have with me today Ken Kozora and Christina Sears-Etter. Ken is a musician and composer, and Christina is a dancer and choreographer. So you two have worked together quite a lot, doing a lot of collaboration. Could you tell us a little bit about how you met and began working together?
Sure. Well, it's great to see you, Amy, and thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for having us on. Thanks, CTN, for hosting this evening. Christina and I met at a festival, Edge Fest, that I play at every year, and I think we were doing a parade out in the street.
That's right.
With adults and kids acting like kids, playing weird instruments and weird music, and we just hit it off in conversation. This was maybe 2008.
That's right.
And we started telling each other about what we did, and we said, we'll have to collaborate sometime. And then I think a year went by, or 6 months or something. We ran into each other again and decided that it was time, and we've been working almost consistently every few months doing a show for 8 years? No, 5, I don't know.
6 years.
6 years.
6 years. Yep, I would say so. And we've explored a lot of different forms of music and dance and enjoyed that relationship between the arts. And Ken composes electroacoustic pieces, I would say, that they have a strong electronic component. And then also, Ken, you're very good with many instruments, a multi-instrumentalist, so that's wonderful. In terms of the choreographer and the dance artist, we can really explore a huge palette of different sounds to support various aesthetics and different movement ideas.
And Christina's always been very generous and welcoming of ideas. Whatever I bring to the table, she's able to integrate. We do a lot of improvisation, and it works really well. We work really well together in that form. And what I really like about People Dancing, the company that she leads, is they almost at every show have musicians right on the stage featured as part of the dance. So it's not like they're hidden under the stage like in Broadway or off camera or whatever. We're right on the stage, so we're part of the presentation, and that's really it's been a real nice venue and for me to be able to perform my music and the type of music that I do.
So you say you do a lot of improvisation. So is that how you start your process on working on a piece together? Do you get together and start just improvising together, or could you tell us a little more about that process?
Well, I use a lot of improvisation in my movement work, and oftentimes it really does begin with the movement and the body and just working in the studio and trying out ideas. We also, in the piece we're going to look at tonight later, there's also a lot of research component behind the improvisation and the conceptual. I guess I've been leaning more and more, well, in this piece in particular, but also in the past couple years, of having a big concept first and then exploring that, using that as a leaping off point, and then using improvisation and that kind of dynamic exchange between the arts to fulfill the world of the piece and kind of bring it to life. But and then we do improvise together.
Yeah,
but
it's
we also
a
have a
combination
lot of autonomy between the music and the movement, I would say.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have like a drum circle feel where the movement and the music are happening like really improvisationally right there. Free improvisation, I would say, where it's very structured improv.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah. Various pieces are each piece we do is different, so that's what makes it exciting. And as she said, I played a lot of different instruments. A lot of times, Christina will have a concept for a dance, so we'll have phone conversations long before we get together. You know, just hey, I'm thinking of this, and that'll trigger something in my mind, and I'll start to think what instrument maybe I can bring to the table, and what process and what kind of concept, and then we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about this specific piece.
So this piece that we're going to be looking at, there's a visual artist that's also involved in this piece, Leslie Sobel. At what point does the visual art become drawn into this process?
That's a really great point, and in this particular instance, it was a very organic process that Ken and I started working together first. And actually, Ken, I think it was you that suggested that we asked Leslie if she was interested in being involved.
Well, a lot of what happens with our collaboration and with Leslie is a lot of synchronicity happens. Christina had said she was working on a piece based on the Anasazi experience, and I said, great, I'm in. And I said, you know, it just so happened someone that we had collaborated with before, Leslie Sobel, had just gotten back from a month-long residency on Anasazi land in areas where the general public doesn't even get to go. So she had come back with a whole slew of work that she had done, and lots of inspiration and lots of stories. So I thought that it was sort of natural that we should just collaborate again, and that worked out real well, of course.
And it was really just
piece.
Seamless. It was amazing how, for example, the white and black pots that are here, Leslie painted these pots that were decorated with other ceramic images. You know, they were finished otherwise, and then I picked them up secondhand, and we were looking for something that Ken could play and make noise on, and then we asked Leslie if she'd be willing to decorate them in the style of. So then she went to this, you know, three-dimensional object. Her paintings, in the piece that we're going to see later, they're actually encaustic paintings, where the paint is mixed with wax, and they're made on rice paper panels. That then she's very hands-on. Leslie came in and helped move in the installation and light it properly and hang it. And
the colors worked out well.
The colors worked out beautifully. The palette that she used on her pieces that she made in Colorado during her artisan residence program became the colors of the whole piece, the colors behind the costuming, and it just was a really wonderful, full, organic experience. I was inspired by ancient Puebloans, or the Anasazi people, whose civilization and the end of their civilization is somewhat mysterious, even though the Pueblos today can trace back to those ancestral people. I was kind of inspired by the past. Leslie, I think, was inspired by climate change and the feelings and impressions of being there in Colorado.
I
can talk about that now, or we can watch it and then talk about it.
So yeah, maybe we should have a look at the piece and then talk some more about what we're seeing.
That sounds great. The actual title of the piece is Of Cedar and Stone. And I should say that I did a version of the piece in southwestern Utah, where there are also connections to the ancient Puebloans or Anasazi people. I did take movement from the forest there that was improvised and brought it in, and that was in 2012. So it took a couple years for those improvisations to come to fruition with the performance piece.
Okay, well, let's have a look at it. Okay, lovely. So this is a solo work, but I see that the figure of the musician is very present in the visual that we're seeing in this piece. Can you talk a little bit more about your performance and your process of the music, and a little bit about the instruments as well?
Sure, that would be great. When Christina had talked to me and explained to me what her concept was for the piece, you know, when anybody says Anasazi or Native American, the first thing you think all the time is flute and drums. And I had done that type of thing with people dancing a lot over different times in different pieces very, very nicely, but I didn't want to really repeat that. I wanted to somehow represent the spiritual aspects of the Anasazi, and maybe not rely on the first thing you run to, the drum and the flute. And so I was challenged with how can I do that. So in conversations with Leslie, I just had her talk a little bit about her experience out there, and one of the things she talked about was there's paths out there, what appear to be stones, but is actually crushed pottery and glass from 1,000 years of you know, people walking on these trails and crushing the glass. And so that inspired the sound. You know, she said it's a very unique sound. So the sound of walking on that path was what inspired me. So I wanted.
She called it pot shards.
Pot shards. That's
pot
right.
shards. It had a
Pot
very
shards.
specific pronunciation, and it was kind of cool.
And so you hear synthesizers, but those are actually samples of glass. And then maybe on the video, the viewer got to see a quick shot. In my studio, I took some pottery and I smashed it and recorded it. So it was quite a process. At the same time, there was aspects that we wanted to capture that we thought, like the thunder with the drums and stuff. That was a great way to do that. And this little guy, this wolf horn, well, it's actually a cow horn, but I use this to represent the sound of the wolf, is very effective in sort of creating an atmosphere of the vastness of the area and that sort of thing. I too had.
Would you play that?
Yeah. I too had been out there, and so I've seen the ruins and stuff, and it's quite amazing out there. So,
Wow, that's
bravo!
quite a sound.
I don't think I could get a sound out of that horn.
So, I've been at many years, and so we used various instruments. I think you saw earlier. I did this, but we mixed it with glass shards, synthesizers, some percussion, thunder, sound effects, and that sort of thing. And I think it matched the dance, and I think it matched the concept real well. I was real pleased how it came out. And again, I think the synchronicity of the conversations and the input. Everybody's very open. Our group is very open. Nobody gets offended or anything. It's like, yeah, let's try that. So it's the collaboration, the collaborative aspect of it is always very rewarding.
Christina, the art of the solo, can you talk a little bit as a choreographer, how does working on a solo, creating a solo, differ from maybe doing a group work? What are some of the challenges, and what are some of the kind of delights of that process?
Well, that's a great question. I really enjoy both forms a lot. The solo has the benefit of being just the one person to schedule. So in terms of the working method, it's got a simpler working method. You don't have to get a lot of bodies in the studio at one time and work with people's real day-to-day commitments and schedules. However, you're left with that one person and that dancing instrument. So I would say the first thing is, you want to really find a vocabulary that flatters the dancer and that's most beneficial to realizing the aesthetic problem, whatever the problem is, and in this case there was a lot to think about. I really enjoy how the other arts in this solo process really gave strength and reinforced the work that I was doing. For example, it's easy to work also in a solo. In a way, there's no distraction. The walk was really important in this dance. There's this walk that actually has a geometric floor pattern, and it was a lot of squares and a lot of very linear shapes on the floor. And because of our collaboration, music and dance, I could actually adjust the walk quite easily in the solo form because there's a lot of flexibility to the sounds in Ken's music. So then it became part of this imaginary world, if you will, of the performer. So I think in the solo, it's quite easy to really dive deep into this imaginary world. And because it's just the one performer, you don't have to communicate it to a lot of people. You know, I have to have it clearly in my imagination so that I can communicate the reality of it.
Do you feel like that's a more direct communication of your pure intention artistically than when you have to communicate that to your dancers and then bring out in their performance what you want to communicate to the audience? Do you feel like it might be a more direct process for communicating your artistic vision?
It probably is more direct, and I think also it can stand as a model for a group work process, but that process is going to be slower because you're bringing more people into that imaginary realm, that space that you're creating. So it is a slower process. So the directness is great. It's a scary process to devise and perform a solo, but I think it's really important. And by scary, I mean there's no fudging. There's no shaving around the edges. You know, that's the one performer in this audience, and it is very direct and it's very immediate. And actually something that I could share, I don't know if we talked about this, but this was performed in Barbados 3 weeks before it was performed in Ann Arbor, and performed in a full theater with a lot of people, and it really connected with people with this immediacy, and a lot of people had comments for me, and these were not necessarily dancers. You know, this is a international experience, so dance is a big part of Bajan culture, and a lot more people are dancing, you know, just in their daily life. But several people came up to me and spoke to me about the energy they felt during the performance, and that they had a direct connection with the content. So that was very satisfying. And I thought, wow, you know, this is a dancing, Caribbean culture is a dancing culture. People really got it, and they wanted to talk about it, and it did feel very direct and immediate. And that was maybe my most satisfying memory, in some ways, of that trip, was how many people said, I really got your piece, and I felt the energy, and it moved me, and they just wanted to talk about it. So that was wonderful, you know.
And then you performed it at a venue here in Ann Arbor.
Yes.
And can you talk about how that experience felt after this kind of very exciting, very fulfilling experience of the initial performance?
Yeah, that's also a great question. Well, the venues were entirely different. The first was that big theater experience where it was, you know, hundreds of seats and a lot of distance. And then we performed at the Stone Chalet on Washtenaw, and it was very intimate experience. And several people did say that they really liked that. In fact, one member of the audience wrote, great performance, great product, up close and personal. Like, she loved that she was sitting right there and could see the movement and hear the breath. People, though, I think the USA audience was generally more reserved in terms of their confidence in speaking about the art. And the people who offered comments really did have positive things to say that were very impactful, too. Another friend talked a lot about fire energy and wind. Do you remember that comment?
Yeah, a lot of elemental.
Yeah, a lot of elemental feelings that came out of the performance and being there.
That was, sorry.
Oh, and this was where we saw this particular video that we saw tonight. That's where that was filmed.
That's right.
Ann Arbor performance.
That's right.
Right.
And then the paintings in between each section are from Leslie's work that in the first performance, those were projected up onto the cyclorama or the backstage or the behind this stage area. So those actual images were really part of the first performance as well, the transitional paintings.
So this kind of reservation that you noticed in the audience at the Ann Arbor performance, is this partly what you are trying to address through the projects that People Dancing does, trying to bring dance into the community and expose people and get them more comfortable with that? As it seems from my experience with working with you in the past with People Dancing that was part of the vision.
Absolutely. We have a dual mission of art and education at People Dancing, and I think aesthetic education is just as important as any other form. And that is a process that can start at any point in time. I think folks are engaged in the arts maybe when they're younger, and then with the pressures of having to earn a living and pay bills and be a productive citizen and all the things we have to think about, that joy of art making kind of sometimes gets neglected or even lost. And so we do aesthetic education programs for all ages, and this kind of show itself is a chance to introduce what's behind the scenes. I think people are afraid of having the wrong interpretation when it comes especially to dance. And I just want to say, you know, the art is there to be enjoyed, and it's for enjoyment, pleasure, and communication, and you really can't have a wrong interpretation of a piece of art. So just folks come and enjoy it, and if you feel that you can share your views, I think the artists in this piece in particular and at People Dancing, we're always interested to hear people's views.
So do you have another piece that's in the works currently that you're collaborating on, or any thoughts on what the next piece might be?
So we have a show coming up shortly with bass. I'll be playing bass, acoustic bass, and tap dance.
Yep, and that'll be in Detroit in December. And that is also a piece that has evolved over time. I'd like to return and do this piece again in a different space and possibly tour it elsewhere. So for more information about all of our artworks and programs, please visit People Dancing and friend us on Facebook. And we're constantly trying to invite people into the process and share information about the life of a working artist.
So they could see some performances, they could get involved in the process in some way.
Yes.
How might someone who's just wanting to get back into embracing their creative side, how might they get involved with a project like that People Dancing is doing?
Well, that is a great question. We have a lot of roles that are open for volunteers.
Leslie's son did the sound, did the audio, sound.
Sam Sobel, Leslie's son, worked as a sound technician. So we have technician spots, we have usher spots, we have
props, lighting,
yes, creating
marketing
pieces of the puzzle, bringing those to fruition, and we have apprentice spots, so if someone's interested in dancing, even if it's been a while or they're just getting started, they can apply to be an apprentice or a volunteer. And we're also accepting applications for board members. So board members are volunteers at a pretty big picture level, helping make the not-for-profit professional arts company go.
And as for the actual dance company members, do you have a continuing group of dancers that you work with? Or do you have an audition process? We're going to wrap up in just a moment, but if someone was interested in getting back to dancing, are there auditions?
Yes, that's a great question. The best thing is to come to class. I teach a class twice a month, and folks can come and take class, and then also visit the website, make sure you sign up for our mailing list, friend us on Facebook, and ultimately reach out and let us know that you're interested, and we will contact you and find a way to get you involved.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Christina, and thank you, Ken, for sharing your work and sharing your process. And I hope that it's inspiring Ann Arbor people to get out there and see some more dance and just embrace the wonderful dance culture that we do have in Ann Arbor. So thank you
so
very
much, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you.